Hello everyone, this is going to be part 2 of your Unit 3 review video. I'm going to be talking about perfect competition, which is kind of the last topic that we discussed over 2 days that you need to know to be successful on tomorrow's unit exam. So first, we talked about the perfectly competitive market. We've defined what a perfectly competitive market is, and we said it's a market structure where producers are price takers, meaning they have no influence on the price whatsoever. Now, one thing that I have to note is that we've made this assumption, at least implicitly, throughout the course so far. We'll complicate this assumption after spring break when we talk about imperfectly competitive output markets and imperfectly competitive input markets. But for right now, we're just going to stick with this assumption. The conditions that give rise to a perfectly competitive output market are full information about prices, identical products, and low transaction costs. We said that perfectly competitive output markets don't actually exist in reality. We can come pretty close. Something that is pretty close would probably be 2 Coke machines selling identical products right next to one another, right? That's close to a perfectly competitive output market. And under perfect competition, producers are price takers, meaning they have to take the price that the market sets. And that if they were to raise the price even 1 bit, they would lose all their customers, right? So the demand curve for a firm's individual output is perfectly elastic. And so here we can see, I'm going to show you some shifts in the curves and some things that we expect in a perfectly competitive output market. Here we can see the cost curves of an individual firm. And then here we can see firm producing X, market of good X. So anytime we're doing sort of this analysis to see the implications of perfect competition in the long run, we want to make sure we're usually going to be drawing a perfectly competitive output market. I'm sorry, my phone went off. We're going to be drawing the cost curves of an individual firm. We can see initially downward sloping ATC and upward sloping ABC curve. Initially downward sloping ATC curve and then upward sloping ATC curve. Same with the ABC curve and then the marginal cost curve right here that intersects ATC and ABC at their minimum points. So if we expect the firm to be a price taker, then we'll look for the equilibrium price in the market of whatever good X is. And then we can just draw a dashed line across, and this becomes the price that this firm has to take, right? They can't raise the price, because even if they were to do that, then they would no longer be a price taker anymore, and they would lose all of their demand for their product. And then we can see the equilibrium market quantity right here. And this is interesting because we also talked about it, and I showed you how firms that are price takers, their marginal revenue is going to be equal to price. Well, also average revenue is going to be equal to price. And then interestingly enough, this curve also becomes, or this line, this horizontal line without any slope becomes the demand curve for that specific firm's output. So although the demand curve for the market is downward sloping, the demand curve for an individual firm's output is perfectly elastic, which is what we would expect under perfect competition, and therefore a horizontal line with no slope. Now, another thing that we expect, right, we can see that the profit maximizing rule is at the intersection of marginal revenue and marginal costs. We can go all the way down to the x-axis, and we can actually find that the quantity that the firm produces, the profit maximizing quantity the firm produces, which if it's rational, it will produce at that point. We can also see the profits that the firm makes. We can go down from the intersection marginal cost and marginal revenue to the ATC curve and then across, and then shade all of this area, and then this would be actually the profits that the firm makes. Now, what we expect in the long run in perfectly competitive output markets, if there's profits to be made, that there will be more entrants into the market that will eat up these profits. And we expect that a firm's profit in the long run, given perfect competition, should be normal profit or zero economic profit. So we can actually graphically show, and I'm drawing this with a little bit of intention here, with the rightward shift of the market supply curve, we can graphically show what the implications of this theory are on price and implicitly consumer welfare. So the new market price is right here. The new market quantity increases, but we can see now the price is the tangent to the minimum point of the ATC curve. And we can see all this blue profit area will eventually go away in the long run. So we can erase this. This is the new price. We can label it P2 / the new marginal revenue curve, MR2. And at this point, we can see that the firm, the intersection of marginal revenue and marginal costs, right, which is right here, it's at the minimum point of the ATC curve. Now, what's interesting too is that we expect in the long run there to be that you're going to create a situation where the firm is going to be producing or offering a price that is at the minimum point of the ATC curve, and this point is what we also call productive efficiency. So what this theory really kind of tells us, right, what these graphs are telling us, in essence, that in perfect competition, and not necessarily just in perfect competition, we can also extrapolate or think about the implications of this on other market structures. But if there's profits to be made, there might be more entrants into the market, and they might push the price closer to the cost, right, as more entrants enter the market, closer to the average total cost curve, might suck out the profits, but it might push, or not closer, or it might force firms to become more, produce their goods and services closer to the cost to actually make them, right? To sort of suck out the markup that firms could charge, right? A price greater than their costs. It's a weird way to put it. I might have messed up a little bit there, so don't read too much into that. This is a constant cost industry, however. There might be situations where as more firms enter the market, that the cost structure of the market itself might change. So here we can see on the left, we have the firm producing X, and here we can see the market for the firm producing good X. Here I'm just going to, and this will be the last thing that I show you that the price, the market price, is a tangent to the minimum point of the ATC curve, because it's easier to show this. So P market, P firm. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to shock the demand curve so you can see this. So the demand curve increases. We expect price to increase. And now there's profits to be made, right? Before the firm was making zero economic profit or normal profit. Now there's profits to be made. This is PF2. This is PM2. And if there's profits to be made, we expect more firms to enter the market. And as more firms are entering the market, you don't have to draw this on the exam. This would be very difficult to draw. And I'm drawing this with a bit of intention. The actual cost to produce goods and services in the market might increase. So for example, if you're building, like for example, if you're building a car and more firms are entering the market, then the demand curve for steel might increase or shift to the right. Therefore, the price of steel increases, and therefore your costs increase. And so the way that you can represent this graphically is shifting the ATC curve up, which we do here, and then we can see this should be tangent to the minimum point of the new ATC curve. This will be PF3. Boom, as more firms enter the market because there's profits to be made. And then we can see in an increasing cost industry, there would be an upward sloping long run supply curve. The opposite is true for a decreasing cost industry. I don't want to necessarily do this for you right here. I think I'll just end the video. But a decreasing cost industry, we expect a downward sloping long run supply curve. A constant cost industry, which I didn't show you here, we would expect the long run supply curve to be right here. It'd be a long run supply curve with no slope. Voila. This is probably a more difficult ideas to master. But the big ideas, if I can just stamp them right here, is that we can use, assuming a perfectly competitive market structure, we can use this market structure to help us gain intuition and insight into how markets and the economy works in reality. So specifically, we know that if there's profits to be made, there might be an increase in producers in the market, which would, in theory, depress or diminish an individual firm's profits. and forces that firm
Okay,
to
I found the
offer a
somewhat wet
price
for the present
closer
individual firms.
to
Check it out.
potentially the minimum point of the ATC curve, or closer to productive efficiency. Now, if we assume perfect competition, then we would expect the price offered to be tangent to the minimum point of the ATC curve. Okay, we're done for today.